The consistent life ethic, or the consistent ethic of life, is an ideology that opposes abortion, capital punishment, assisted suicide, and euthanasia. Dorothy Day was an American journalist, social activist, Christian anarchist, and Catholic convert. Day initially lived a bohemian lifestyle before gaining public attention as a social activist after her conversion. She was a political radical, perhaps the best-known radical in American Catholic Church history. She was born on November 8, 1897 in Brooklyn, New York. She was the third child in a strong religious family. They moved around a few times to San Francisco and then Chicago, where she was baptized in the Episcopal Church. She attended the University of Illinois and became interested in radical social causes to help workers' suffrage and the poor. In 1916, she decided to drop out and move back to New York. She worked as a journalist on socialist newspapers, participated in protest movements, and developed strong relationships with writers and artists. During this time, she really struggled with life. In February 1921, she had an unhappy love affair, which led to her having an abortion, and it scarred her for the rest of her life. She described this experience to a friend by saying, "You know, I had an abortion. The doctor was fat, dirty, and furtive. He left hastily after it was accomplished, leaving me bleeding." Afterward, Dorothy got an infection from the abortion and sank into sickness and deep depression. She suffered from more failed attempts at relationships and marriage, which led to her attempt to commit suicide twice. Then, for years, she was afraid that she would never be able to conceive another child. She said that abortion was the great tragedy of her life. Thankfully, a few years later, she gave birth to Tamar Teresa Day Hennessy in 1926 with a man named Forrester Batterham. During this time, her faith began to take form after conceiving Tamar. She had her daughter baptized in July 1927, but the father disagreed with her views and did not attend the ceremony. This led to the downfall of her relationship with Batterham. When she started embracing her Catholic faith, she began to lose many of her radical friends. In 1932, while covering the Hunger March in Washington, D.C., she prayed at the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception and asked a way to open up to serve the poor and unemployed. The next day, back in New York, she met a French immigrant named Peter Marin, who had a vision for a structured society of gospel values. They then founded the Catholic Worker newspaper, which jump-started a movement of houses of hospitality and farming communes. This movement became so popular that it is replicated all around the country and in other parts of the world. After this, she lived her life full of faith to the injunctions of the gospel. She dedicated the rest of her life to serving the poor and promoting peace. In 1955, she and others refused to participate in mandatory civil defense drills that were scheduled for that day. They were subsequently charged with violating the law, but Day described her refusal to participate as a moral objection and public penance for the United States' first use of an atomic bomb during World War II. Later in life, despite her ill health, she visited India and witnessed and participated in the works of Mother Teresa. She also visited Poland, the Soviet Union, Hungary, and Romania as part of a peace delegation during the Cold War. While working for integration, Day was shot at. She prayed and fasted for peace at the Second Vatican Council, received communion from Pope St. John Paul at the 1967 International Congress of the Laity, and addressed the 1976 Eucharistic Congress in Philadelphia. She died of a heart attack on November 29, 1980 in Mary House, one of the Catholic worker houses she established in New York City. Her cause was opened in the Archdiocese of New York in March 2000. That is Dorothy Day, and she defended the consistent ethic of life.